So nice to see you all checked in. Like he said, I am here in Houston. I'm here at my office right now. I just shut the door so we don't get interrupted. But I am from McAllen, Texas. I went to school in McAllen, elementary, middle school, high school. I went to Lincoln Middle School and Nicky Rowe High School in McAllen. Once I graduated from there, I applied and I went to UT in Austin for my undergraduate hookup. And then after that, I applied to law school. I got into law school here in Houston. And my plan was to go back to McAllen, actually. But my husband, who was on here not too long ago, maybe last month, he's an engineer and he works in oil and gas. And so oil and gas is really big here in Houston. So for now, we're living here, practicing law here. But our plan is to go back to the Valley. We love the Valley, and we want to give back to our community now that we've finished school and we're both working. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of information. I want it to be more like a question and answer. So if anyone's interested in law or going to UT or anything like that, you can ask your questions as we go. I do have a couple pictures that I'll put up so that you all can see. But like I said, I came from McAllen. I was sitting in the desk that you all are sitting in. I mean, not too long ago. I'm not that old. But, you know, whatever you want to do, that you can do it. So I know some people always say like, oh, just study hard. But I kind of want to give you like more real advice, like as to like what to do as a person. So I was talking to my aunt yesterday. She actually works for Region 1, and she's the one that got me involved in presenting. And I was telling her that it's super important to learn to like to learn. Every day in my profession, the laws are changing. So just yesterday and this last week, they're telling us that there's a new law that's going to take place on Monday. So if I don't use this weekend to learn and read up on what the new law is, I could potentially damage, right, my client's case if I don't know what the new law is and how it's going to apply to them. So you know, I didn't like reading. I always use those Spark Notes, right, to study in high school and middle school. But, you know, you learn that it's really, really important to read, to learn, like to learn. I mean, and, you know, not everybody likes to learn certain things. You need to find what you like to learn. If you like math, focus on math. If you like reading, focus on reading. Try to figure out what it is that you like to learn. And then that way make it your passion, because in life, whatever you decide to do and whatever work you decide to take on, you're going to have to be doing that every day. So I like to read. So now I read the law and then I see how I can implement that law into my clients' cases. Do we have any questions so far right now? I know I saw those girls. Yeah, go ahead. I don't know if they have the mic on.
I think they're working their way to the front microphone.
Hi, what's your name?
Okay, you're unmuted. Go ahead, Fridalgo.
I don't think I can hear him.
Did you know you wanted your job?
Could you repeat the question a little louder or closer to the mic, please?
When did you know you wanted your job?
How did I know I wanted my job? I knew that I wanted to go into law pretty young in life, but I think I didn't really know what that entailed. So I just started really, even in college, I started interning at different law firms, because law is so huge. Like there's so many different types of law. There's attorneys that help you when you get into a car accident. There's attorneys that help you if you get in trouble with the law and you're in jail. There's attorneys that help you write wills. There's attorneys that help you write contracts. So you have to figure out what type of law it is that you want to do. My grandparents actually came from Mexico, and when they came, they immigrated into the US and they became residents and then citizens. And so that process really fascinated me, and I started working as an intern with an immigration attorney, and I saw that I was really passionate in that. I liked helping people be able to stay in the US and keep families together, really, right? So I dedicated myself to that. I've been doing it for 3 years now, and I really enjoy it. I help them not only do applications to go to an office and interview to become residents, but also when somebody gets detained and they go into the detention center, I'll go visit them in jail, see what type of case that we can come up with, and then I'll go represent them in court and try to get them out. Something I think that's interesting for people to know about bonds is when you get arrested for a criminal conviction, you go in front of the judge and the judge gives you a bond. A lot of the times you can pay 10% of that bond and get out. But immigration is completely different. It's different sets of laws. So in immigration, if you get a bond, and the lowest bonds that we're seeing right now is $7,000, and they can go up to $20,000. That person or their family is gonna have to come up with $10,000 to $15,000 and pay it before that person can get out, 100%. So those are the kinds of things that I see every day, and I'm trying to get the families to understand the laws, right? They've never had people in detention. And so I deal with the client, I deal with their family, who's obviously sad that they're detained, and then I try to figure out a way to fight their case so that they can stay in the US. Any other questions?
Okay, there's a question that came in from Lafaria who does not have the camera enabled, and they want to know how many years total have you attended in both college and graduate or law school?
Oh, wow. Okay.
After high school, yes.
So after high school, I went to UT, and normally it's 4 years, but when I was in high school, I applied for a lot of scholarships. And so during high school, I applied for a scholarship that's called the Gates Millennium Scholarship. I'm not sure, do you know if that still exists?
Yes, it does.
It does? Okay. So I applied for the Gates Scholarship, and I got it. I don't know how it happened, but I became a Gates Scholar. So I really recommend that you apply for as many scholarships as you can when you're in high school, because it'll help you in the long run. The Gates Scholarship would pay up to 5 years of college. So I graduated from college owing nothing. I studied communications in UT. And then I decided to go to Spain for a year to study abroad. I went to Spain, and I was supposed to be there for 3 months. And a month and a half in, I fell in love with Spain. I fell in love with the classes, and I made a lot of friends, and I wanted to stay. And so the Gates Scholarship would pay if I wanted to stay another semester. So instead of staying 3 months in Spain, I lived in Spain for 11 months. I did all my classes there, and like I said, it was all paid for. Gates paid for the 4 years that I was at UT, and the year that I was in Spain. My books, my food, my housing, everything was completely covered. And so while I was in Spain, I got to travel, right? It's very easy to travel in Europe cheaply once you're there. So I got to see Italy, Paris, France, Morocco. I went to Africa. And this was all paid for by my scholarship. So that's why it's really important that you apply for scholarships. So after my 5 years of school at UT, I applied to law school. Law school was another 3 years. So in total, I was in school for 8 years before I became an attorney. Once you finish law school, though, you're considered a lawyer, but you have to take an exam that's known as the bar exam. And that bar exam is 3 days, intense, all day, sitting at a computer, writing, typing, and answering multiple choice as well. And you don't become an attorney until you pass that exam. So you do the 8 years of school, and then you study for this exam, pass the exam. Once you pass the exam and you're sworn into office or sworn into the profession, then you can start practicing and helping clients. So it's a long process, but I have friends that are in law school or in college right now, and I tell them to enjoy the process, because once you get out of school, you just start working, and then that's what you do for the rest of your life. So I had a lot of fun in college. I had a lot of fun in law school. I was also able in law school to study abroad. So I went for a summer to Puerto Rico, and I went to the law school there in Puerto Rico. Learned the laws there. I got to go to court there in Puerto Rico and study. In Puerto Rico, I actually studied immigration law. So that's kind of where the spark started as well. I saw the need, right, for immigration attorneys. And it is hard. I mean, the laws in immigration are always changing. The policies are changing. I don't know if you know much about, like, I mean, I'm sure you hear it in the news, but there's different programs and they're trying to end the programs, and then all of a sudden, okay, they're not going to end yet because there's a case pending. So I'm constantly on my toes, having to see how the laws are changing, what cases are coming into effect, so that I can be able to help my clients, right?
We have a question, Chris, from Vernon.
Excellent. Go right ahead, Vernon. Welcome.
I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, have the student come up to the microphone, Laura, or the computer, please.
What is the biggest risk that you've taken?
What is the biggest risk that you've taken? That's what she's asking.
In my job?
Mhm.
Wow, that's a hard question. I think I take risks every day, really, just because I try to give the clients and the families my best advice. It's not always easy. I don't always win. So sometimes I'm not able to get them out of the detention center. So I try to explain to them, right, what I think is going to happen. And then if I think like, okay, we can try this. This is going to be a really big risk, but let's see what happens. So really every case I have to take some type of risk and let the family know. But ultimately, as an attorney, you can't really decide to take the risks. You just explain to the clients what the risks are and give them the options. And then they're the ones that have to tell you, okay, I'm willing to take that risk. Let's go for it. And so that's pretty much how it goes every day. In my life, really, I think the biggest risk that I've taken is leaving the Valley to study. I had a really great parents, but my dad was trying to bribe me with everything. He was like, just stay at Pan Am, stay in Edinburgh, don't leave, and I'll buy you a new car. I'll give you money. I'll take you wherever you want to go. And so it was really hard convincing my dad to let me go and study away and not stay in McAllen. I love the Valley. I love McAllen. Like I said, I want to go back. But if there's one piece of advice that I can give you is to, if you can go away at least for a year or two outside of the Valley and live somewhere else, I really recommend it. Because in the Valley, you know, you grow up, you learn, and it's your comfort zone. But when you go away and you live somewhere else, you're outside of your comfort zone. You're meeting people that you wouldn't have met if you had stayed in the Valley. Your parents are not there. Your family's not there. And it really gives you the chance to grow and expand your network of friends and your relationships as well. So I would encourage you to apply for scholarships and take the risk of applying to schools that are not in the Valley. And if you get those scholarships, go away. But always remember that the Valley is where you're from, that the Valley is where you were raised, and it's important to turn around and give back. So once you become a professional and you finish college, remember that it's important, like I'm doing right now, talking to you all, is to help the students and help the Valley and always give back to the community where you came from.
Vernon has another question as well.
Okay.
What career mistake has given you the biggest lesson?
Wow. Okay. Career mistake. Yes. Turning in things on time. It's really, really important. I know in school you have to turn in your homework by a certain day. And if you don't turn it in, you'll get a 0 or it's minus points. One of the mistakes I made was when I go to the detention center, I have to have my ID, my Texas driver's license, as well as my attorney card. So my husband and I were in the process of buying a house and he had my ID. I didn't realize I hadn't taken it from him. The detention center is an hour away from Houston, from my house. I drove all the way over there and I had court. When I get to the detention center and I get to the bailiff, she asked me for my ID, and I start looking in my purse, and I don't have my ID. They wouldn't let me in, and I had court starting in 10 minutes. I was an hour away. I didn't know what to do. Obviously, I was really stressed out because my client was there. The judge could have ordered him deported. So many things could have happened, and you know, I was a mess. I had to call the court. I had to rush back to Houston. I convinced them to give me some time. But really, it was a really big mistake. I should have checked my purse before I left the house and made sure that I had what I needed before I left to court. So, I mean, I'm 30 years old and I still make those mistakes, right? So I learned never to forget my ID when I'm on my way to court, especially because you have a whole person's future in your hands. Had it gone wrong, the judge could have said, your attorney's not here, too bad, I'm going to order you deported. And to me, that would have been awful, right? So I learned a big lesson that day. And here in immigration as well, the judges are really strict on deadlines. So if I don't get the documents, the supporting documents to the judge on time, he's not going to accept them. And then I'm not going to be able to fight my client's case the way I should fight it.
Thank you.
Awesome. There's a question from La Feria, Tanya, and they want to know, what does a typical day of work look like for you? You talked about running, but you're not always going to the detention center. So what is it that you do maybe in preparing for court or, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. My day changes really day by day. So for example, they signed us up for a writing class. So we have 10 sessions and all the attorneys here at my firm were doing a writing class. And so, one second, I think the internet, oh, there we go. Does it sound okay?
Yes, it froze just for about 5 seconds and now you're back.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're taking a writing class, and because we're taking the writing class, we have to come in earlier. So I got here yesterday at 8 o'clock in the morning. I did the writing class for 2 hours until 10. And then I had to run. I had some clients come in. I met with the clients. Different meetings with clients can be different. Like some of them are coming in for the first time and they want help with the case. And some of them are already my clients and we're preparing them either for court or to file documents. So I met with the clients. Then after that, I ate lunch. And then we have a really big deadline. I have to turn in a lot of documents by today so that they're in the court by Monday morning. So last night was a little crazy and I stayed here at the office until 9:30 p.m. So I got here at 8 and I didn't head home until 9:30. I got home at 10 p.m. That doesn't happen every day. I don't stay every day that long, but it was a really, really long day of work yesterday. But on a typical day, I come to the office, I look at my emails, see what I have, I meet with clients. If I have court or I have to visit someone, I go to the detention center. If I go to the detention center, I'm probably going to be there for a good 2 to 3 hours. It takes me an hour to get there. I meet with the client for an hour. Sometimes they make me wait, and then I have to drive an hour back. So that does take away a lot of my day, and so that's why we have to charge a good amount of money for me to be over there, because as I'm over there, I'm not working on other cases. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my typical day at the office. It changes day by day depending on what I have. There's courts all over Houston. So we have 3 courts in Houston, 1 in Conroe, Texas, that's like an hour away. So depending, it's also super important that I look at the notice to see what court I'm supposed to be in, because I've had clients go to the wrong court and then they're rushing to get to the correct court. Houston's really big. There's a lot of traffic. So it's really important to plan out your day.
Thank you. Vernon has another question.
Okay.
What research did you do to prepare for this role?
Research. Okay. In law school, I was interested in immigration law, so I applied to study abroad on an immigration program. It was specifically geared towards immigration. So I took immigration classes as a law student. I also worked in law school with an immigration attorney, so I could see what he would do every day. I got to learn a lot from him and see what his day-to-day life was like. And then I read a lot. As soon as I got into the profession, I just started reading up. There's this book, I actually have it right here. This book is a resource guide, it's huge. And so this tells me if I don't know where I need to go, I look at this book and I read and try to find the answer. What's really important to our relationships. So in law school, I made a lot of friends and we're all practicing now. A lot of them are practicing immigration as well. You're not always gonna know all the answers, or you're not always gonna know where to look. So I really look to my friends and other people that are in the profession. So sometimes my day-to-day is having lunches with different attorneys in the field. Just the day before yesterday, I had lunch with another immigration attorney and I was helping her prepare for her case. So she was asking me questions because I had just had a case with that judge the week before. So it's really important to use your resources, use people that you know, that do what you do, read books, and work right with different people, intern like I did, to see if that's the type of law that you want to do.
Thank you. We also do have another question as well.
Okay.
What was your first win that made you confident that you were doing the right thing?
What was your first win that made you confident that you were doing the right thing?
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. So I have these 3 little boys. They were my first cases. At the time, one of them was 6, one of them was 8, and one of them was 10. They came walking from Honduras by themselves. They were abandoned in their country. So they came over and they ended up at my office and they told me their story. And so I applied for asylum for them. 2 of them were brothers and the other one was a stepbrother. So in Honduras, they didn't live in the same home. So their stories weren't the same. So I prepared them, wrote a brief on their story, went with them to the asylum office, and the asylum office interview was 6 hours. We sat, and I don't know, for some reason, they always make the courthouses and the offices really, really cold. So you're sitting there for 6 hours with an officer just questioning an 8 and 10-year-old little boy on what happened to them. And so we did the best we could. I also did it with a 6-year-old. And so once we got out of there, we had to wait 2 months before we knew whether or not they were going to win. 2 of them, we were able to win the case just based off of the preparation that we did with them and the information that we wrote. The 6-year-old's case wasn't strong enough, they said, so he didn't win. And so the little 6-year-old meets with me and he's like, well, how come my brothers can become residents and I can't? So it was really tough to hear him tell me that, right? So I researched and found another way that potentially I could win his case as well. So I was super excited that I won for them, and now they're residents. They're both in middle school and high school now. And the other little boy, just recently, last month, I was able to win his case as well. And so now these 3 little boys that have honestly had a really hard life in Honduras, they're now all residents. And so they're going to be able to stay in the U.S. I think it's one of my proudest cases just because they were my first 3 clients. And it's really taken us 3 years to get to the point where they're all going to be able to stay here. And it is really powerful just because you see, you just have to continue trying and finding new things and new ideas and not give up. And there was times where they were frustrated and they, didn't know what was going to happen, and it was really stressful. And 3 years is a long time to wait and to not know, and just be in limbo. So you really have to be able to talk to your client, calm them down, and tell them, I know it's going to be worth the wait. Let's just keep going. And so those 3 cases are really my proudest cases that I've had so far.
That's inspiring. That's an inspiring story.
Awesome. Ms. Cortez, you have a question for your classroom? Okay, I've unmuted you. Go ahead.
Your experience is so real to the kids, but hold on. Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
How old were you when you knew you wanted to be a lawyer? Like for sure.
Oh, like for sure? I don't know. It's so funny. I was talking to my mom the other day because she was going through, she was cleaning the house, and she found this drawing that I did when I was, I think, like 6, and I drew myself in a suit with a briefcase. So since then, I knew, I don't know why I was so passionate about law, but you know, you say that and you don't know if that's what you really want to go into. But when I started at UT, I want to say after my 2nd year, I started interviewing for jobs in Austin. And one of the ones since I was interested in law, I worked with an attorney, but he didn't do immigration. He did criminal. And so I started working with him, and I really saw that you could have a really big impact helping people. Like I said, the laws are always changing. People don't know the law, so it takes an attorney to always study, know the law, and be able to figure out a way to help people. So I always knew that I wanted to help people. Once I started working and learning more about the law in college, I realized that was my passion, and that was the way that I was going to help people. And so that's pretty much when I really, really decided, was I guess in college, after working with an attorney and seeing like, okay, I like this.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, while we wait for another question, there's one that's coming in from La Feria, and
Okay.
we want to know, how does it work when you work with children? Who typically pays for them? How do they contract your services for up to 3 years, for instance?
Okay, that's a really good question. So there's different organizations that dedicate themselves just to cases for kids. And so a lot of times they'll do that work for free. But there's so many, so they can't take every case, and there's no way for them to be able to pay for all those cases. So sometimes they'll come to immigration law firms like mine and ask if we're willing to take the cases on for free. So that's called pro bono. And so there's a couple of cases that I have that I do pro bono, where I don't charge anything at all. It's just me wanting to help the child. And so I just take it on, and whatever fees come up, my firm helps me cover them. And as for like legal fees and time that I put in, I don't get paid. I don't get paid for that. But like for some of the kids that I have, they've maybe been abandoned by one parent, or they have one parent here in the US, or they also have a family member, an aunt, an uncle, that is willing to help them with the fees as well. So it just depends. It's case by case. We really don't like to, if we take on a case and they're having problems paying, one of the cool things that I like about my law firm is that we offer payment plans. So we'll let them pay a certain amount up front, and then we start working on it immediately. And then we give them time to be able to pay the rest of the money. I know there's a lot of law firms that don't do that. They'll ask you for the entire amount up front, and if you can't pay it, then, I mean, that's too bad, right? But I like that we're not like that. We take payment plans, and as long as you're following through and paying on those payment plans, we're going to continue working on the case. It's just a way to help people, because we know that they can't afford the entire amount right away.
Vernon has another question.
Go ahead, Harlingen.
How did your earlier career choices lead you to where you are now?
Okay. In college, I was studying communications. So I studied public relations. which is nothing to do with law. But I'm really interested in anything to do with communication in terms of like social media, Facebook, MySpace. When I was around, it was MySpace, MySpace, and Instagram and marketing, really. So I knew that that was something that could potentially help me later on. And honestly, I was just interested in it and I wanted a degree in that. And so that's one of the things I wanted to point out too, is that if you want to study law, you don't have to go to college and get a government degree or an English degree. You can study anything that you want in college and then apply for law school and get into law school. There's no specific degree that you have to get. Then I started law school, and in law school, I took the opportunities of interning and getting jobs in law already so that I could figure out what type of law it is that I wanted to practice. So in law school, I did make specific career choices in interning and working for lawyers that did things that I was potentially interested in. So I worked with a criminal attorney, I worked with an immigration attorney, I worked with an attorney that just deals with cases to do with property, buying and selling houses, wills, making sure that you have a will. If you die, where does all your property go to, right? So I was very strategic in working for them so I could see whether or not I liked what they did, so that I would know that once I got out, what I was going to be doing. And although I don't really use my communication degree in the practice of law specifically, I am using everything that I learned. So here at the firm, we need to market ourselves. We need to let clients know that we're here and the type of work that we do. So I'm one of the attorneys that works with one of the main partners here at the firm to do marketing. So they'll send me to radio stations to give interviews. They'll send me to different Univision always has events where they need attorneys and to be either on camera or on phones taking clients. We make marketing videos, Facebook Live videos. Anytime something changes in the law, I'll jump on Facebook Live and give an explanation to people. So even though I'm not using my communication degree to do communications work, I use what I learned in that degree to help me get clients and market myself.
Thank you. I think we have just one more question from Vernon.
Okay.
How do you avoid being complacent in your role?
That's a really good question. I think it's always so busy and so everything's always changing so much that you don't really have a chance to be complacent. And I think that's why I chose this job, because criminal law hasn't changed, right? There's still the same laws that they've had for like, I don't know, over 150 years, something like that. And so different laws, it's really easy to just like learn what you need to learn and kind of sit back, and every case that you get, it's kind of like the same. But I get really angsty, right? Like I need change. Like I don't want to sit at a desk all day. So that's why I love what I do. The laws are always changing. There's always something that I have to learn. I'm either driving to visit someone, or I'm driving. I mean, one time I even had to drive to the airport because they were about to deport someone. And I was trying to convince the officer to not take him and put him on the plane. So the job is really intense. It's not every day is, right, me running to the airport trying to save someone, but things are always changing and there's always something that I have to learn. So I don't really think that there's ever a time where I'm like, okay, what do I do now, right? And I'm kind of bored. It's always really exciting. The hard part, though, to be honest with you, of my job is that it's very emotionally draining. It's very intense. So I'm constantly meeting with clients. And so when I first started, it was really hard because they come and they tell you their stories and they tell you their life and like what they've been through. And that really takes a toll on you because you're constantly listening to things and situations that people have been through. So at first it was really hard because I was seeing that I was taking all of that home. It was hard for me to separate, and it was weighing on me. So if there's something that to me was hard in my profession, it was that. It was learning how to separate and say, okay, they did go through that. They are going through a really hard time. But instead of getting emotional about it myself, I used that and channeled it now into like, okay, what can I do to make it better for them in the future? And I'm not gonna lie, it's still hard. I've gotten a lot better at dealing with it and learning how, because I have to. I was just in court 3 weeks ago. And when I was in court, I was like, there's no way we're gonna win this case. Like, it was really hard. I told the family there was no way. So I dedicated I was like, okay, if we're gonna win this case, it's going to be because of the emotional aspect. His wife has stage 3 cancer. So I really worked hard. I got letters from the doctors. I got their medical records. I had the children go to psychologists and see what the effects were, right? Not that him being detained, how the kids were being affected. I got school records. The little boy had ADHD and dyslexia. He struggled in school already. So I got those records from the schools. I prepared my client for 5 hours, and it was hard. He wasn't getting some stuff. So I really pushed and pushed and pushed to prepare as much as I could. And then just see what it was going to happen. Like, I guess I could have easily been like, oh, there's no way we're going to win that. Like, what's the point? But no, like, my job is to do the best I can. So I prepared. We went to court, and I knew it turned on like the emotion. I've never seen this happen before, but you have the attorney that's on the other side. He's on the government side. And so I knew that I needed to make them feel really bad to not let the guy stay. So I did my closing statement, and you know, I tried to make an impact and make it very emotional. I don't know how this happened. Again, I've never seen this happen before, but the attorney on the other side felt so bad that he started crying. Like, he got a lump in his throat, and like tears started coming out of his eyes. And I was just like, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, I think we might win. And so then the judge obviously like didn't know what decision to make. It took him a while. There was like awkward silence, and we're just waiting for him to decide. But then he says, okay, sir, you made a mistake. I hope that you understand that if you make another one, you're not coming back. But your wife and kids obviously need you right now, so I'm going to let you become a resident. And I was like taken back, right? I couldn't show any emotion there in the moment. My client was crying. His wife was crying. Like, it was very intense. So that was really, really awesome. And so I think that when things like that happen, you see that like the work that you do really makes an impact. And even though you think that there's no way, I mean, sure, it could have gone the other way and he couldn't have won. But at the end of the day, I would have felt confident in that I did everything that I could.
Awesome. What a great story. Thank you, Tanya, for sharing. I have 2 questions. First one is from Ms. Cortez.
Okay.
And if you want to come up to the microphone, thank you.
How do you break up a person?
It's kind of garbled. Good day.
Yeah, I couldn't hear that.
How do you
Say
break
again?
We heard how do, and then could you repeat the question, please?
How do you break
I think it's cutting off. Maybe if they type it in.
If you want to type it in, it's just we're not picking up on the microphone, Ms. Cortez. Sorry.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes,
Oh,
we
yes, I can.
Okay.
How do you break it up to a person that they won't be able to see the
Could you lean down a little closer to the microphone, please?
How do you break it up to a person that they won't be able to see?
I think I heard. Is it how do I break it to a person if that they didn't win?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really hard. Yeah. Depending on the case, some of them they're detained, and I go and meet with them and just explain to them what because the judge will always tell you why they're not gonna accept it or they're not gonna grant the case. And then if the person is not detained, the judge always gives their order, and they give an explanation. So sometimes like that explanation is like in legal terms, and so it's not easy to read. A person doesn't understand like, oh, you're being denied because of subsection blah 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 of this law, and they're like, okay, I don't even know what that is. So I really just sit with them. I really feel like one of my strengths is talking to people and getting them to understand different legal jargon, right? But at the end of the day, they're people, and I'm a person too, and so I explain to them in the best way I can why the judge denied it, and then if there's a chance to appeal the case, or I think that there's a way that we can go to a higher court and get them to change their mind, then I'll tell them, like, I think that we should appeal this. I think these are the reasons why. But if I feel like an appeal is not going to be very strong, then I try to explain to them, like, look, we tried the best that we could. In the end, these are the reasons that the judge is going to deny the case. And you know, it's hard. It really is, like, to explain to them, and but a lot of the times they get it in the sense that they don't want it to happen. But as long as they feel like, if a person feels that you represented them the best that you could up to that point, and they see that the work that you put in, for the most part, I've never had a client like upset at me for it in the end, because they always feel like I'm on their side. So what I try to do is make the client understand that I'm on their side and I'm doing the best that I can for them. But it is hard. I remember the first lady that we lost the case, and she was deported back to El Salvador. It was really hard. Her son is actually our client too, and he's still here. So I ask about her all the time and try to see how she's doing over there. But that's the risk. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and you just have to have a plan for if you don't win, what they're going to be able to do once they get to their country.
Great question, great answer. And I kind of a follow-up to that is from Hidalgo. They want to know how many cases you have lost. And obviously it's difficult to lose, but you're just saying you win some, you lose some.
Oh no, it's super easy to lose. In immigration right now, it's getting really hard. It really is. It's getting really hard to win these cases, just because the laws keep changing, and it's every day it's making it a lot harder to win. I don't know. I don't have like an actual number of the ones that I've lost, but it's been a lot. It has been a lot, but there's always, we try to figure out something else that we can do to help the case or the person, right? When you do win, it feels really good because there are so many losses. It's because there's like different types of cases. So when I try to take someone out on bond, normally if I put in the work and present the evidence that the judge wants, I'll be able to get them out on bond, unless they've done like some really crazy offense criminally, then they're probably going to be stuck in there. So those are pretty, like, they're good wins, and I'll have like at least 3 to 4 of those a month. But at the same time too, I'll have 3 or 4 losses. So it just depends. There's been a lot of losses, but there's also a lot of wins too. I don't just do removal work. So removal work is deportations. It's people that are detained and are trying to fight to stay. I also do cases where someone has a family member that's a citizen or a resident, and they came in legally, or they have a petition from years past that I can use, and I file that evidence not with the court, but with an immigration office, and the immigration officer will interview them. And so those are a lot easier, right? I'll know right away whether or not I can take on the case and win it. And so as long as we have all the evidence and then we prepare the client for the interview, I go to the interview with them in case some type of question comes up that they can't answer. And for the most part, like they get approved and then they become residents. So I do those cases as well.
A follow-up question to that from Hidalgo is, do you blame yourself for the losses? You talked about the law changing a lot. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it
Um,
or it just caught you by surprise, or they're built in to make it hard for them, obviously?
yeah,
And
I don't think I've ever been where like I blame myself. Just because I work a lot and I work really hard on a case to make sure that I'm prepared. Like I've really never gotten caught off guard because one of the first things I learned that first year of practicing was that I had to be on my game. Like I had to read and understand the law. And if I don't understand it, then I'm going to go to somebody who does and have them explain it to me. Like I can't just sit on my hands and do nothing. So I really never blamed myself. And I don't really think I don't really blame anyone, but like the system, right? Like I think that the laws could be better. So I would like to see like some type of reform where I can help more people, because there's some situations where their immigration history is just so checkered and there really isn't any type of relief that I can apply for them. So that's when I really do get bummed out, because I see a person who I think deserves to stay or fight his case, but there really isn't anything to fight. So I don't really blame myself, but I mean, I do get bummed out about it. And I'm always learning. Like when I went to a hearing that I lost, the judge and the other side were like, well, why didn't you present this type of evidence? And honestly, I hadn't even thought about presenting that type of evidence. So like when I had lunch with my friend 2 days ago, she was going to have a case just like that. And
you froze for a second, Tanya. Okay, you're still frozen.
didn't know. I didn't think that would be relevant. Oh.
We lost you right when you said you talked to your friend who had a similar case coming up, and then it froze.
Oh, so I told her that they were looking for that type of evidence now. And so she's like, I did it. Now on, evidence to the judge. So you learn every day what you can't do. You try to be creative with the evidence that you present as well.
Talk about appeals process. Students may not know, like, so if you lost a case, do you have appeals in immigration law, or is that just what you see on TV? You know, talk them through some scenarios.
There are appeals. Yeah, so there are appeals, but it's not like criminal court where you do the appeal in front of a judge. So there's immigration judges all over, and these I don't always agree with it, right? So if I appeal, I basically have to write a brief. It's a paper on all the reasons why I think the judge made a mistake. I filed that appeal to the appeals court, the appeals board. They're out of Virginia. So they never see me, I never see them, and they never see my client. So I have to be really good at writing my client's story, getting them to understand who my client is and all the reasons why I think the judge messed up. I send that paper to that board in Virginia. They read it, and ultimately they decide, yes, the judge messed up, or no, we're going to stick to the judge's decision. And just depending on what that board says, if they decide that they made a mistake, then they take it back to the court and I get to do the case all over again.
Do judges take offense to that? Or I thought maybe just the prosecution made a mistake, but it's actually the judge and their decision.
It's a judge's decision, yes. No, I think it's good that we send them to Virginia because they don't really know, right, that we're appealing. But ultimately, that's my job. Like, my job is not to please the judge. Do I have to respect the judge? Yes. Do I have to always say your honor and be on time and present things on time to respect the court and respect the judge? Yes. But ultimately, like, my job is to defend my client. So if I don't agree with something in court, then I say it because it's being recorded. It's on the record. So if I don't agree with something, I object and I say to the judge why I'm objecting, because when I want to appeal, then I use the record. They send you the whole record and I say, like, on page this, the judge said this, and I don't agree, and this is why. So I make sure that I put in all my arguments and I say what I need to say in the court, respectfully, of course, but because my job is the client, not the court. I had a cool story the other day. I was in court and the judge doesn't speak Spanish, and the attorney on the other side didn't speak Spanish either. I speak Spanish, and my client only speaks Spanish, so there was an interpreter. And my client's wife said a phrase, right? And the interpreter interpreted it, and I didn't like the interpretation. I correct. Said, objection, I don't agree with that translation. So it's really important that you pay attention in court to the translation, because it could really change like what the judge and the attorney hear. So I objected, and we went back and forth, and that's all on the record now, showing that I objected to the interpretation, because it could have had a big effect to the case. It seems small, but it was really big in that the judge doesn't know whether or not that translation was adequate. So there's always things like that in court you have to pay attention to as well.
Good explanation. Any other questions out there, folks? We still have a good 5 or 6 minutes left of the session. While we're waiting,
Pictures I can put up. Let me see. Yeah.
Arnold and Vernon, they wanted to say thank you. They had to leave. Their bell rang a few minutes ago. And so she
Okay.
texted me to say, thank you so much. It was great.
Okay, let's see. I think I got cut off for a little bit. Am I back on?
You're on. They're showing like the presentation, but it hasn't gone to presentation mode, so you can see all the different slides.
Okay, let me try to open it up.
Okay, now stop sharing.
I think it's like frozen. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, is that on there?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this. I know I mentioned going away for college, but these pictures are of an organization that we started at UT. We were from the Valley and we really missed the Valley. So these are all students who are from the Valley, and we called it Valley Longhorn Students. We would meet twice a month. And it was just a way for us to be able to be with people that understood our culture, were from the Valley. And so it was really, really fun organization. These are a bunch of the members. We would do community service together. And it was also really cool because we had a page. And so anytime someone was going home for the weekend and they needed a ride, we would give each other rides to and from the Valley. So it was just a really good way of being able to be around people that came from where we came from. This is a picture of graduation. So at UT, when you graduate, they have fireworks. And so that's the tower. And that's when I graduated from UT. This is when I studied abroad in Spain. I actually took a writing class where we wrote a magazine. And so that guy on the right side is a soccer player, professional soccer player for the Sevilla team. I got to interview him and write a story on him while I was there. This was law school graduation. It's my husband, and that's when I graduated. These are some of my friends. They actually all live in Houston still too. She practices criminal law, and she practices also personal injury.
Look at Ivan, awesome.
And that's it. Just wanted to share a couple of pictures. Do we have any more questions?
Your dog was waving. I think they might have a question.
Hello.
Ms. Cortez. Go ahead, Ms. Cortez.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you. My kids really enjoyed your personal experiences, and you brought, like, we're making a lot of connections because we're Latinos and Hispanics, and it's good to see a young, beautiful person, sharing her experiences with a very, very good career. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Your kids did great. Thank them for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go because I have my next period.
Okay, certainly.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hidalgo, do you have any questions? I know his hands are raised. I'm not sure if you're just waving or if you're waving to ask a question. Lefaria said, thanks. Hidalgo from all those. What's your most memorable college moment? They like those pictures that you were showing.
Oh, yeah.
I did too. I had a blast at UT. If you look behind,
Yeah.
UT everywhere.
Man, college was so much fun. I really, really loved college. I loved my time at UT. I think my most memorable moment and the advice that I can give when you get into college is to join organizations. Because when you first go to college, especially if you go away, you get homesick. You miss your parents. It's your first time away from them, away from your family. So I joined a lot of organizations like the Valley Longhorn Students. I joined a Latina sorority where I made a lot of friends. And so I have so many memories with the organizations and the friends that I met in college. My whole experience in college was so much fun. I think the most fun though was living in Spain for a year. It was a blast. I actually lived with an older lady at her house. She was a widow, and so I became really good friends with her granddaughter. Ever since I left, I go visit them at least once every other year. She just had a baby. She got married, so Spain and studying abroad was one of the best things I ever did. I really recommend it. Even if you don't get a scholarship that pays for your entire college, there's scholarships that you can apply to specifically for study abroad. So my recommendation would be when you get into college, go to the international office and make friends with the counselor there so that they can explain everything to you. And right now that you're in 7th and 8th grade, it's important to start thinking about meeting with the counselors in college that help you apply to college and tell you what types of scholarships are available. My aunt, she's actually on the screen. She helped me so much. She was at that time, I think she was a college counselor for the high school level. And she kind of just made a little package for me. And she was like, here, apply to this. And this is what you need to do. So make friends with your college counselor because they're really going to help you be able to navigate applying for college. My parents didn't graduate from college. They didn't know anything about how to pay for it, how to apply. They didn't have the money to pay for me to go to college. But they pushed me really hard. They never let me not pay attention to my schoolwork and not focus in school. So they were really important in pushing me to get good grades and know that I needed to go to college. It really wasn't an option, but they didn't know the details of how to get me there. So my aunt, who is a counselor, and the counselors at your school are going to be a really, really useful resource in helping you get there.
And that's a lot what Gear Up brings to the table.
Oh, yeah.
Facilitators, but they work hand in hand with counselors. Matter of fact, there's counseling academies going on that Miss Isela, your aunt, is in charge of Joe Castillo putting that together, where they have 4 or 5 different opportunities throughout the year to learn different aspects.
Yeah. Oh, we love Gear Up. I think when Gear Up was in place, it would skip a year. So my husband got Gear Up, I didn't get Gear Up, and my sister got Gear Up. And so, I know he presented last month, but one of the really big reasons why he went to A&M and studied engineering was because of the programs that Gear Up offered. So yeah, like we're big fans and supporters of Gear Up at our house.
Awesome. And we're a big fan of you, Tanya. You have been fantastic today. I really appreciate you taking the time. Tell your, I don't know, you had a partner, colleague, secretary, someone tried to walk in early and
Oh, they did? I didn't even notice.
really cute. Just laugh. So just tell her we say thank you for giving us the time today. And for those
Definitely.
that have an opportunity, we'll be back at 1:45 for session 2. So
Okay, thank you all.
thanks.
Thanks for attending. Have a good day. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.